as I've been saying all week on the videos I've filmed this week, I have been dedicating the videos to my wife's brother-in-law, Grant, who sadly died last night at a relatively young age. He was a fantastic guitar player, and he was a fantastic singer, and it's a monumental thing when something like this happens, especially when somebody is not that old. And my family and all the sort of people around us are sort of reeling from the news at the moment. I got up this morning and thought, well, let's get into my studio and film some YouTube videos. But all these videos have been filmed with this at the back of my mind. This is the last one I'm filming today, but it's probably the first one that's going to come out, because it's going to come out on Philosophy Sunday, and I usually have to wait until there's something I want to talk about. In filming these videos this week, I have been talking about, on the video where I talked about the greatest living jazz musician, there was an underlying theme. I didn't mean it to be there, but it sort of emerged. A lot of time when I do these videos, things emerge, you know. And it's really interesting how this happens, because I'm in the process here of talking to you, but I don't know what I'm about to say next. This is a big feature of my channel. I don't plan what I do. It's the jazz musician in me. I like to just come in and riff and see what happens. There is a genre here of the Talking Heads video. This is a genre, much like the blues is a genre, and much like, say, Italian realism film is a genre. This is a genre. This is the thing that has emerged on YouTube. I sit there all night watching people talking into a camera like this. I'm on my own here. There's no one in the room. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to an imagined future audience. That's what I'm talking to. And in doing that, I've become aware, because I have done a lot of these videos, that there is... It's like a confessional thing to do this. There is a stress of trying to ride the wave of talking and making sense and not going wrong, which I enjoy. A lot of people would hate it, but there's a weird thing in my personality that I enjoy doing this. I enjoy trying to weave a structure that has underlying esoteric messages as well as the actual message of the video. So when you go back and look at my videos, you will see that there's other things in there. So for example, you want to know one? This idea of the talking head. Last Sunday I did a video where I explored the band Talking Head. So that's an esoteric thing. It points to the genre. People might not be aware of it consciously, but you had a guy talking about talking heads who was a talking head. All right? I'm interested in that as a genre. Now, so when I come in here, I am riffing. I'm trying to connect with something that I believe exists and is out there. And this is going to be the subject of this video, is what this is. Right? What am I trying to connect to, and what is it? When I did the video on the greatest living jazz musicians, I started to talk about this thing that I called the Great Reservoir. Right, I made that up in the video. The Great Reservoir is something that musicians tap into, and truly great musicians seem to be directly connected to this. In other words, what they're doing is not part of their ego. The ego is actually death to creativity. What they're trying to do is connect directly to something which they feel, as all musicians say, is not them. Often when I do these videos and I get to the end of it, I have been listening to what I'm saying in the same way that you guys are, and I come out going, well, that was quite interesting, that was, because I haven't thought this stuff. Right? Now, what are we connecting to, and what is the process of connection, and how does that relate to the art forms? So is it the same thing when somebody is dreaming up a story? You know, when somebody's writing a book and they're dreaming up a story, or somebody is improvising a jazz solo, or somebody is sat with manuscripts and piano creating music, or somebody is talking to camera trying to explore this idea of the thing that I just mentioned that all those art forms do, right? What are they actually doing? Right now, what it seems to me is there is a conjunction in the human being, which is a conjunction between time and space, which is physically manifested in the two hemispheres of our brain, which relate to the two ways in which we perceive the universe. Our perception in the universe, subjectively to us, is the universe. So the universe is a creation inside your mind, as Descartes performs out. It is the product of our thoughts. We know we exist because we think, and what we think is constructed in somewhere, right? And if you believe in a material reality, you believe that you are in a situation, and the way you understand that situation is through your perception, right? And the way your perception is interpreted by your brain, which you have decided in material space is located in your skull, which you only know exists because you have the idea of a skull wrapped up inside there. So is it really inside there? So as soon as you start to think along these lines, you hit the philosophical problem, which Descartes tried to basically, he changed the whole of Western civilization by asking this question. And from that question, comes out a whole different, schools of thought. Communism is based in that. Capitalism and the Enlightenment is based upon that. Empirical science is based upon that. We start with that premise, right? And it is unanswerable. There is an infinity in the fact that we feel like we are positioned in the universe, but basically we know that we are just a thinking thing. Now, the way we are interpreting this universe, because I have decided to accept that there is a material reality out there, but I don't know what that material reality is. And my perception of that material reality is through my ability to understand spatially where I am, and that is basically about being in the now. It is the three dimensions of space. But the other dimension I exist in is time. And time is to do with past and future, and that's to do with prediction. It's to do with order. The spatial world that we live in is chaotic. The ordered world we live is time-based. Humans have been able to pretty much show that that time is actually a dimension the same as space, and that's what last week's video was about. Right, but I'm going to go on from there with this video, and I want to talk about the way that relates to art and the activity of being an artist. So I think what an artist does, and all the forms of art, every single one, this could almost be a foundational definition of what art is. Art is a thing that people do when they do this thing that I'm about to describe. What we do is we exist in a world where there is an obvious dissonance between our appreciation of chaos and order. Those two things don't gel in humanity. Wars are created by mental illness is created by it's a disparity of not being able to make those two things work harmoniously. When you start to explore various religions, you start to see that there's an attempt, especially the esoteric aspects of religions, to try and create balance between those two entities, right? We can see this in the yin and yang symbol. We can see this in the Holy Trinity, that there's two things which are then affirmed into this by this third thing. And from that, in many religions, that is where creation comes from, is this dialectic of two opposing things come together to create a greater thing. And then you can take that thing and then you can bring in the opposites of that and create a greater thing. And this creates an upward movement. So when we look at the universe, right, whatever it is, what we see is this ongoing upward movement. And that sort of gets explained through this dialectic approach to understanding the universe. Now that could be materially, so scientists, when they use a rational, they have empirical elements, and then when you take a rational approach to that, you took a scientific method, it's a dialectic. You have an idea, and that is this sort of positive ordered idea and you do an experiment, and then you have to test it against the antithesis of that by trying to put in all the things that bring that into question, and by bringing those two forces together we have an outcome which produces a synthesis of those two things, which is sort of elucidates material truth. But also, if you take a philosopher like Hegel, he was dealing with the dialectic as well, and we see dialectics in say with communism, where you have a proletariat and you have the bourgeoisie, and those are two antitheses, and then communism tries to create a balance between those two, in my opinion, really badly. So this idea of the dialectic, I think, is the fact that there is a higher principle of human experience when we are able to join together our sense of the time-based ordered universe, which relates to us in the terms of sort of a Platonic idea of perfection. So we have a realm which is ordered and perfect, and that relates to a perfect realm that doesn't quite exist. It's an ideal. We have an ideal of perfectionism. If you err too much towards perfectionism, you start to lose the reality of us as human beings. You know, the chaotic, you know, fallen characters that we are. In terms of the arts, I've tried to explain how this relates to science, but in terms of the arts, this could then be boiled down to what I have called perfectionism and hedonism. So there is a desire, well, desire is the wrong word, because that is what hedonism is, it's about desire. There is when you create art, it is quite obvious to me that there is an attempt to unite how we feel about the universe and how that relates to our desires, our emotional response. It's what people call emotion. To ally that with a sense of order. And this is where the sort of perfectionism comes in music, where artists say, I have to have my vision, it has to be the way I want it, and it's not right, and it needs to be like this, blah, blah, blah. I think great art is when you're able to fuse those two things together. You need a bit of both. And what artists do is continually show different ways of how to unite these ideas of chaos and order together, of hedonism and perfectionism. Right, now I've said this over and over on this channel. I think this is the only reason why I have this channel, is to try and keep pushing this idea, because this idea actually counters a lot of more mainstream ideas that have come out of sort of postmodernism about what art is, which I find not just wrong, but also dangerous to our culture. If you understand how culture works, that is my opinion, and I'm out there trying to do my bit, you know, to support the arts and make the people realise that the arts aren't just some postmodern thing which is just about, you know, regurgitating what culture has already produced. That there is actually something profound and sublime in what artists do, and it relates to these greater all-encompassing ideas that have moulded humanity over the last 5,000 or 6,000 years. So what an artist does when they actually sit down, we get to the meat and potatoes of this video now, 15 minutes in of introduction, is, if you think about what an artist does, they react emotionally to the world. That is the emotional part. That's the part that relates to space. Everyone has that feeling that you're full of worries. You're full of worries. You've had a terrible night thinking in your own brain of what's going to happen, you know, and if this happens, that's going to happen, and you're full with anxiety. And then you get up in the morning, it's very difficult to get dressed, you know, and you put on your coat and you walk out the front doors. Actually, you have to open the front door, you look up and it's a beautiful sunny day. And suddenly, that experience seems to temper the place you're in at the moment, because you've stepped in from this place of time, this place of knowing the past and predicting the future, this place of trying to second guess what's happening. What are the threats? What are the rewards? Am I going to do well? Am I going to do badly? You know, does the future hold, you know, a beautiful garden that I can sit and reside in and feel perfectly happy? Or am I heading towards quicksand that I'm, you know, what are these things around my feet? Is it the beginnings of sinking into a pit of anxiety and depression? of chaos, the chaos that is around us all the time. When you look around, the chaos that is everywhere. We see all the ordered patterns of nature, that the sun is moving around the earth, the clouds are moving across the sky, we have the seasons moving around. It all seems ordered, but then when you went down, you could see the mess and the litter. You could see the weeds growing in the cracks, and you feel that there's chaos below. Chaos that is trying to come up and envelop you and pull you down. How can you escape that chaos? It's our duty as human beings to escape that chaos, or we'll be pulled in. We need to protect our families from that chaos. Right? That world is then completely balanced as you step out the door and you go, oh, look at the sun, and you feel that. Then it's not a rational argument that does that. It is you have stepped into the moment, and the moment is fine. The moment's fine. Anyone who's watching this video, unless you're tied up, you've been kidnapped and tied up by somebody and they're threatening to kill you and they're torturing you by making you watch my videos. If you're one of those, then this doesn't apply to you. But most of you are probably sat there quite comfortable, cup of tea in the one hand, some biscuits in the other, and you're watching my video. You may even be just having it on to go to sleep. That's what I would do if I was me. Right, I would put me on because I'm sure my voice is going to put you to sleep. There's Andy wittering away in the background, filling up my brain with loads of stuff so I don't have to have the demon of past and future coming in. Here he is wittering away and I can just slowly float off, right? You at the moment, right now, are fine. Most of you are watching this are fine. Right? There may be somebody watching it on an iPad on an airplane that's descending down into the... And if that's the case, it's over. You are in the last few minutes. There's nothing you can do about it, and at that point the best thing is just to let go and relax, because there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. We are always in the eternal now, and the realization that we're in the eternal now is an incredible thing, because it tempers this. It's not rational arguments that's going to, if you sit there and you think, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to pay the gas bill, they're going to cut the gas off, and if they cut the gas off, we won't be able to keep warm or cook, and then, we'll have nowhere to go, and then we're going to be cold, and then my kids will probably get pneumonia, and then my kids will die, and I'll have dead children, and it's going to be all terrible. These terrible things do happen. Right, I am talking to you. This is a unique video. My family has experienced a huge loss by someone who was too young to die. That's happened literally a few hours ago, and I'm talking to you now. In that situation, there is nothing you can do about it. There is nothing you can do. And talking about it will not help this situation. It won't. It is a thing that's happened. Right? The thing that tempers this situation is, for me, I know it has happened. I've been told it's happened. But my material reality right now is I'm sat in my nice warm studio talking to you guys. I can remember when my dad died. My mom had been with my dad, he died, and she rang me up and said, this is a depressing video, sorry, but it is Philosophy Sunday. He rang me up and said, your dad's died. I was all upset, and I said, what are you going to do, Mum? She said, I'll come over and see you. So she drove over to see me. It was a lovely sunny day. It was early spring. And we went out to the garden, and one of the plants needed trimming. And then my dad loved gardening, but he wasn't there now to do this. So I thought, well, I better do this. So I go out with my mum and said, can you tell me how to just trim this plant, please? So we're trimming it. It's a beautiful sunny day. And I turned around to my mum, whose husband of nearly 60 years has just passed away in the last 2 hours. And I say to her, how do you feel, Mum? And she goes, what's really strange? She says, I'm actually having a lovely day. What art does, I think, is it takes that. Now the experience could be, right now you're having a terrible day. Right now you've just been told that a close family member's died. Right now you've found out that you're terminally ill. Right now that something terrible's coming your way. That is a visceral, emotional experience. That is the chaos that life throws at us, and it is always there. Or we could be having a very beautiful day. We could be sat in a lovely garden and it's sunny and we're relaxed and there's nothing on the horizon that's going to threaten us. Whatever it is. Or it could just be the feeling of being at one with nature, which is something that people who are terminally ill continually report. The great playwright Dennis Potter, I can remember in the early 90s when he was terminally ill with cancer, he did an interview. It could have been with David Frost, I'm not too sure. And at that point, very close to death, they said, what's it like? And he said, well, what happens is you look out the window and you see a tree and you are just overwhelmed by the treeness of a tree. Right? But we can get into that frame of mind through art, because what art does is it creates structures that allow us to do that. So last week, I decided to sit down, put this camera on, and see where this video took me. And as I looked at the window, I looked at a tree. I'm looking at the tree now again. This tree has become very, very important to this channel. And as I sat there, forced to look at it by the nature of the artistic structure that I had created to exist in, I became aware of the very treeness of a tree. And by exploring that experience of the eternal now, exploring the nature of the situation I was in right now, I was being able to build upon that something which I had no awareness of. And when I got to the end of that video, what was really surprising is that I realised that what had happened sort of made logical sense, like it was structured, like it was meant to be, and I had no control over that. To the point where I could quite understand somebody saying, I watched Andy's video, and if you actually look right from the beginning to end, there's things that seem to relate to each other all the way through. Why did he talk about talking heads? How did he do that? How did that relate to the tree? How do you have the book in the background? How come was the diagram there? Right, the reason why that happened was because I opened myself up to the world around me. I was forced to by doing this. As I'm talking to you now, and I think this is why I enjoy doing these videos, I am traversing a line between chaos and order. This could fall apart at any moment, but it won't as long as I can serve the moment I'm in right now. Sometimes I use this environment around me to search for some sort of truth, and it's this type of connectedness. So I look down here, and on the floor next to me are two things. I'm going to pick them up. We have a book on Queen Elizabeth I, and we have a drum key which tunes drums. Okay? Now I have thrown in some randomness into this video at the moment, but by throwing that randomness in, I am going to try and connect to something which is not me. It can't be me because I didn't put these here. Well, I did. Do you want to know why this is here? Right, no one was reading this book. I was teaching a student last night, and there's certain things and processes where to be able to achieve this thing, I have to stop their arm movement. So I pulled out the book and asked them to put the book under their armpit, right? And they put that book under their armpit, that's why that's there, right? This was an aid to expressing one of my students' expression. They're trying to work at creating a structure where they will be able to express something. They're trying to create the structure that we're talking about. They're trying to physically create that structure so they can express themselves to access something. This here is a drum key. Right, this is the thing, the interface between that skill and what the audience hears. This drum key is more than just a key. A key is exactly the right word for this. Because if, I was chatting about this with my drum tech on the way home or from a gig the other day, I was saying, you could practice, you could do whatever you do to become a good musician. But if your drums don't sound great, either because they're not tuned right, or because the engineer does not know how to put them in the PA, people will not think you're very good. This extra thing out in the real world is essential, as is the skill and the ability to present yourself in a way that people can aesthetically take in. That there is a representation of what an artist does. If you have these two things right, okay? Now, there's got to be a deeper meaning there, and this deeper meaning is not being provided by me, it's being provided by the world around me at the moment. That key, this is a key, there is a key to experience, right? And it's the interface between what's in here and what is out there. And what this does is consider that. It considers the presentation of what is out there through here back out to out there. So I want my drums to sound a certain way. And this is the key that enables them to sound in a way that I can express myself, right? That is one aspect of skill. This is the physical aspect of skill, of training the body to be able to work at one with the mind, all right? But there's an alternative meaning here, isn't there? Because this is a book on Elizabeth I, right? The great Virgin Queen. Now, what does this mean to me? Okay, as I hold this up, a thought strikes my mind because I'm in this structure right now. If I wasn't in this structure, it wouldn't force my mind. But this has made me think something straight away. I don't have to reach for it. I don't have to go, right, Elizabeth, so she was probably the most successful female queen. So maybe it's about feminine energy. Is it about feminine? Which it all could be about feminine. What about the names of the writers? We've got Roy Strong and we've got Omar. What is that? I could do all this and try and pull some sort of meaning out of it. But as I hold this up, something strikes my mind which is really profound. I was listening to the radio the other day and they were talking about morality. And they were saying that we as human beings like to believe that whatever time we are in is the time where we have nailed morality. So our moral worldview is correct. And it is actually that. It is that causes mass genocides. It's that causes war. It's that causes infighting. It's people believing that what their position is morally sound. We look back in history and we can look back to a time when Elizabeth I was on the throne. Now Elizabeth I was the daughter of Henry VIII, and Henry VIII was the monarch that through sort of what seems like an intense narcissism decided to pull this country out from within the Catholic Church. Right, and I've got someone's come. I'm going to have to stop there. Hang on, I'll come back to this in a minute. So I was building to something then. I'd lost track of the time. I had a student booked in. I was going to do a drum lesson and they knocked the door. You heard them knock the door. And they basically, I was in the moment, wasn't I? I wasn't aware of time passing. I didn't know. And then this chaotic element suddenly comes in. And now I can't get back into that zone I was in before. I just can't do it. I was building to something. I knew I had an idea in my head. The idea's gone. It was all to do with I was going to chat about the sort of the Elizabethan worldview, how they saw morality different to ours, but I can't get on it now. I'm in a world of chaos. I'll tell you what I can do to finish this video off. Because I think what I'm going to do is I'll put this video up. This will be my Philosophy Sunday video. And I think, what shall I do? Chaos. Chaos. Comes in every now and then. I'll watch the video and I'll try and answer it. So this will be part one of this video. And I just have not able to access wherever I was. I could start with I start doing something else. I could start doing something else, I suppose. But what? You invested in what I was talking about then, and now it's all gone wrong. Oh, I've got a little drum kit here, look, can you see that? There's my little drum kit. You don't normally see this when you see the let's start something else, shall we? That's actually not a bad idea. Let's not start something else. Let's just get into the old get into the audio a little, just change it to